Hello, hello, this is Khavrion, and I'm doing another battle report. This will be for round 1 of Vaulsc's Crit Tournament. The Crit Tournament is actually kind of special. It is an attempt to explore some potential house rules for infiNity, the game 4th edition that Vaulsc has come up with. And Crit is actually a mnemonic that can help you remember some of these house rules. Namely, crits, rerolls, limited insertion protection, and 20 models. So throughout the course of the battle report, we're going to be talking about how some of these changed rules may have affected the game. Right out of the gate, though, the two big ones are 1, if you're running a single combat group that is limited insertion, your opponent cannot spend a command token to strip you of 2 orders. 2, instead of being restricted to 15 orders, you are instead restricted to 20 models. A model is basically anything that can kind of ARO or trigger, so mines count, puppet bots count, that sort of thing. But it also means that you can run effectively up to 20 models, and all of them can be order-generating warbands or something like that. So those will be the two big things that affect the game that you're about to see. Next, let's talk about the mission. The mission is called Recovery. It is a variation on the classic Capture and Protect, but it has less of a focus on going second. So in Recovery, there are 2 beacons, 1 per player, and you want to try to capture these beacons. You get 2 points if you captured the enemy beacon at the end of any player turn, so if you just run up, grab it, and end the turn, you've got 2 points. You get 2 points if you captured the enemy beacon at the end of the game. You get another point if the captured beacon is in your own deployment zone. And you get another point if you prevent the enemy from capturing your beacon at the end of the game. On top of this, there's a designated target that you have to kill. There's a data tracker that if you kill the designated target with your data tracker, you get a bonus point. And then there are 2 antennas that you need to connect by having a specialist run up and pass a whip roll. Down here in the bottom right, you can see the layout of the map. So very similar to Capture and Protect, but there's a little bit more going on with the buttons and everything else. And there's a little bit less focus on the beacons specifically being something that the person going second can mess with. Now, I personally have never played Capture and Protect, so I couldn't tell you if Recovery is a better version of that mission. But I've done Recovery in previous Vol events in N3, and I just did Recovery now, and I think it's a perfectly fine mission. All right, let's talk about lists. So with the 20 model restriction replacing the tactical window restriction, I spent a lot of time trying to think about what the best way in order to try to play this tournament was. I am normally a vanilla Nomads player, although if you follow the channel, you could be forgiven for not noticing that. But Nomads kind of don't really benefit from the 20 model restriction. In fact, in many ways, it seems like the restriction was designed with them in mind. Your Pupniks and your Puppet Tactica count against the 20 model restriction without necessarily counting as generating orders. So you could take advantage of your high availability of Morlocks and kind of fill everything else out, but you'd be giving up things like the Puppet Bots and the Pupniks and the Uberfall Commando, which are really, really good. Then I started thinking that maybe Assassins would be really good because you can just bloat yourself out with the Delamis and take advantage of that. But I'm not a Assassin player, and that, to be honest, just didn't seem like it was going to be a lot of fun. And I've really been having a lot of fun with the big boy list that I stole from XNet. I've run this list through both of Vaulsc's past 2 events, and so I figure, why not, I'll run it for this one. At the very least, I can be something like a control group that you can measure against to see how the changes affect things. I don't know, that's probably overstating things. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into games of infiNity, so I wouldn't read into that too much. Basically, I couldn't come up with anything new that seemed like it was going to be fun, so I decided to run this. Now, I've talked about the big boy list a lot in previous videos, but to give you a top-down, high-level overview, it's basically all the badasses in Steel Phalanx crammed into one list. You have Achilles, you have Akmon who can duo with Achilles, you then have Machaon, Phoenix, and Ajax who can form an Anomatarchos either with Akmon or with Hector. Of course, you also have Hector. And then you've got 2 Netrods and 2 Lamets. So this list is really tough. It has a ton of orders. Everyone in it is such a crazy badass, and it's really, really fun to play. And I think one of the really key things here is that Ajax and Phoenix are both going to be very, very oppressive unless you have the right tools to deal with them. Phoenix's heavy rocket launcher, Mimetism -6, and smoke grenades basically means that if you don't have MSV, he's going to be really hard to put in the ground. If I can get Phoenix in a tough ARO position, then he is going to be able to really dominate over the course of the game. So that's my list. Next up is my opponent's list. Now, this list is not exactly what my opponent ran. I mean, for one, it's over 300 points, but I think it's pretty close. There are essentially a handful of high-level details that I want to talk about. First and foremost, my opponent has chosen to run 8 Taigas. There are 2 with AP shock weapons, and there are 6 with DA CCWs. Remember that under the crit rules, you could run up to 20 models instead of the usual tactical window limits. That means that filling out your list with cheap warbands like Taigas is totally legit. Now, Taigas in general are pretty darn good in my opinion. They're fast, they dodge well, and they have Berserk, which means they can run up the field and threaten most typical matchups. However, they don't have smoke, and this particular Steel Phalanx list is not most matchups. My Steel Phalanx list will dodge really well, have really good CC potential, and have multiple wounds or NWI. Because the Taigas don't have smoke, they're going to have to deal with my AROs as they try to advance. Further, once they get there, my dude's martial arts means that they're basically going to have one shot in order to berserk to try to trade up. Double action close combat weapons are pretty good, but I basically need to fail both saves in order for someone to die. Moreover, if I can use the terrain to vector the Taigas into Ajax or Akmon even, their odds of killing someone are really, really low. So, as good as Taigas may be in general, this matchup may not be great for them. Next up is the core of Shishkin, a Nox, and a Nox. I think this is a pretty standard core for Shasvastii. Nox are kind of expensive, and I don't usually see a full 5-man, even if you can fuel Shishkin. Back when Shishkin was critting on, like, every single die she rolled, maybe it made more sense. But now, I mean, just giving her the extra burst is all she needs to go to town, and you're not dragging around a whole bunch of things with you. After Shishkin, we see 2 Seed Soldiers and 2 Shrouded Hackers. One rule we haven't mentioned in crit that does come up is that mines are now deployed with a prone marker next to them. My opponent is basically going to take 1 Shrouded Hacker and 1 Seed Soldier and deploy them each within 8 inches of each other. If both are prone, then I won't be able to tell if this is a mine layer versus the Seed Soldier Shrouded combo that they actually are. What's particularly clever about this, in my opinion, is that it hides how many Noctifers are present. I know how much stuff is on the table, but since mines count as that stuff, I don't necessarily know, how many points these guys are worth versus if they're actually a Noctifer. As it turns out, there's only the one Noctifer, but it did give me a little bit of pause, and I had to basically throw smoke on my advance. After that, I think it's all pretty standard. You have a Caliban chain of command in case Shishkin dies. You have 1 Noctifer, just the 1, and then you had 2 Ichadrons and an Ardrone. As I said, I don't really remember exactly how this turned into a 300-point list, but I do remember that it was kind of low on SWC. And notably, most importantly, in my opinion, it did not have MSV and it did not have smoke. Shasvastii does not have a lot of options when it comes to smoke, but a speculo mine layer with smoke grenades really would have been helpful to cover the advances of the Taigas, and that's just not something you're seeing here. So that's my opponent's list, give or take. Here is the table. It's the same table that Vaulsc used in, I think it's Season 3 for Recovery. You have a beacon right here. You have another beacon right here. These are the things that have to be stolen. Then there are 2, I think they're antennas. One's right here, and then one's underneath that bridge. There are a handful of long front-back arrows. Basically, I think this particular spot sees over here, has some signs this way, and then this spot right here also, I think, has some lines that way and some lines that way. However, if I switch to this picture, which I guess is after some of the deployment has been done, really the longest lanes of fire are going to be something like from this building, which can see all the way over like that. And then if you can get on top of this building in the middle or this building in the middle, or even like this building here and this building here, then you'll be able to see quite a bit of stuff. I think my opponent wins the die roll and opts to choose table side. I'm up against Shasvastii, and I'm also have no idea how he's going to be running 20 dudes, so I just decide to go first. Per my usual strategy with the big boy list, I basically take my entire list and I castle it up in some corner. In this case, I castle it up in this corner. I'm thinking that if my opponent makes a serious play to try to steal my beacon, there's not much I can do to stop it. So all I really have is I have Hector sitting right here who can kind of watch a little bit of this side of the beacon. Really, since I'm going first, my plan is going to be to move up to the midfield, get on active ARO, punch his list a whole bunch of times, and then on the 3rd turn, snatch his beacon, kill the designated target, that kind of thing. Taking you through the rest of this, though, I have a net rod here, which succeeded in dropping, a net rod over here, which failed to drop, Lamed Flashbot. I have Akmon right there, prone, Ajax right there, prone. I think this is Phoenix, and I think this is Machaon, and then I have Achilles over here. I had withheld Akmon and Achilles because I'm going first, but ultimately I did decide to put Akmon in the Enomatarkos rather than having him be separate. This is my opponent's deployment. We have Taiga, 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 and there's a Taiga over there. Then we have a Shrouded Hacker and a Seed Soldier, I think it was a Paramedic, pretending to be a mine. We have another combo of that over here. Then I guess there's maybe another Seed Soldier Hacker up there. I know that was a Seed Soldier Hacker. Maybe that's the combo right there. You have the Nox Hacker, Nox Paramedic. I think Shishkin's downstairs or on the stairs or something right there. Prone. Then you have Ichadron, Ardrone. This is the Caliban. And the Noctifer, I don't remember where the Noctifer was. I think it was like right here. So he's opted to hide behind his flash pulses as his primary active AROs, which I think is a good decision. But we will notice that the Taigas are all prone. I won't be able to shoot them. And they simultaneously, though, if they have their impetuous movement, will have to be advancing up the field, kind of like this. My plan basically going first then is to think I need to shut down those Taigas, and the best way to do that is to seize some high terrain where I can get arrows on all of them. So let's talk through my turn starting from this picture of my deployment zone. There are a couple of spots that I could use in order to have a long-range arrow to shut down the Taigas. There's the middle here, that's a natural spot. Over here is a little bit less convenient because it's further back, but it might be easier to get to. I could potentially run all the way over here, and I could try to seize this building right there. Ultimately, though, I'm worried about potentially 2 Noctifers out there. There only turns out to be 1, but I'm worried about 2. And so I decide to go for this building here on the right-hand side because I can approach it with smoke and thus have a guarantee of getting Phoenix into a good arrow position there. While I'm here, I realize I didn't talk about data trackers and designated targets. Here's my designated target. My opponent's designated target is over there. He chooses Shishkin as his data tracker, obviously. I think a little bit about using Ajax and Achilles, and then I decide that I'm going to use Ajax as my data tracker. Okay, so my turn. I basically take my Nomatarkos here, I run it up this way, I throw smoke in a handful of places in order to cover myself from long-range enemy Noctifer arrows, and then I try to take out that building. Here's the situation after a little bit of smoke. I'm trying to keep Ajax back because I don't want him to get hacked. I am aware that this guy could be a shrouded hacker. Also, by the time we've reached here, I actually exposed myself to a potential mine by moving a guy right here. When this thing didn't trigger as a mine, I knew that it wasn't a mine. The next thing I did is I walked up the stairs here. I was keeping Phoenix as the leader. Phoenix has smoke grenades, and he also has Mimetism -6. So if my opponent is going to pop a Noctifer and shoot at someone, I want it to be shooting at Phoenix. You can see I've done a very careful job of making sure that nobody gets too close to Phoenix, so if he does get shot with missile launchers, he's not going to get hit. And in fact, if I remember correctly, this smoke toss was actually prompted by the fact that I walked up there, and there was an Icadron over here, there was another Icadron over there, and I was going to take shots at them, and a Noctifer basically just appeared and shot at Phoenix, and I think he threw smoke or something like that. Having thrown smoke, the next thing he does is he intuitive attacks with his nanopulsar against this hacker. The hacker decides to dodge the nanopulsar. I think I hit him. I don't exactly remember, but at that point he's revealed and he's pretty close to the smoke, so I can go cut his head off. I then spend another order running over here and do the same thing with Machaon there. Both of these circumstances are a little bit risky. If I had failed the intuitive attack and if my opponent, hadn't done anything, then those would have been wasted orders. But on the other hand, all I really need to do is clear off this building because I want Phoenix to have an arrow position here. So if it takes some time and all I do is I kill a handful of things, I think that's pretty much okay. And this is the position that we ended up in. I have Phoenix sitting right there. I have Ajax standing right there. Then I have Akbon on something like an active arrow position. And lastly, I have Machaon tucked in safely. The thinking here is that if the Taigas come surging forward, I can get shots on them with Phoenix. If I need to use Ajax to get shots on them, it's going to be bad range, but he's going to have burst too, and who knows, he might crit. And then also, if these Taigas do come surging forward, I want to be able to take shots with Phoenix on them, but if he takes a wound from their chain cults or something like that, then he can fall prone to safety and be an NWI, and I can fix that later with Machaon. The other thing to note is that Phoenix here is on arrow against the Nox and Shishkin link in this building. They can go prone in order to avoid him, and that's basically what they're going to have to do because this is bad range for them, and Phoenix has Mimetism -6, so they just can't afford to have that gunfight. And that's pretty much my turn. Here is my opponent's situation at the start of my opponent's turn, and he really does not have all that much that he can do. The Taigas are effectively pinned. I think 1 or 2 decide to impetuously move forward and try to dodge, but those that do just get shot. Meanwhile, Shishkin and her link are stuck trying to crawl down the stairs, which is really slow. After the impetuous phase, my opponent is thinking that he really does not know what he's going to do. He wants to get some points, so he activates this Seed Soldier and runs over here to push this button. I think we can see here the Seed Soldier running past the button, trying to push it. The button push is successful in the first go, but it does eat up some orders. Next, my opponent decides to use irregular orders on the Taigas to see if they can't get something done. One of them gets up to here. I think I actually dodge because I've shut down their impetuous orders, and so dodging, I don't want Phoenix to get hit by the chain cult. He's doing such a good job shutting down Phoenix. What I do want to do, though, is throw Eclipse Smoke with Machaon so that they can't berserk into Machaon. Double action is unlikely to kill him, especially with the new crit mechanic, basically meaning that it's only 2 saves, but it would still really just suck to have my whole link dissolved and my doctor killed for nothing. I figure if I block line of fire, then he's not going to be able to berserk, and if he can't berserk, then there's a lot that he can't do. Another Taiga does run up. Looks like Phoenix takes a wound, which, considering that he was probably dodging, is kind of a big deal. Off in the distance, you can see that Akbon appears to have been the victim either of a chain colt or a berserk Taiga himself. He's taken a wound as well. Otherwise, not much happens. I think the taigas that were maybe over here, maybe these two taigas end up in this position, and the Shishkin Link prone spends a lot of time running up over to here. I'm not entirely sure what the objective is, but I think they're trying to position so that on a later turn, they can make a play for the antenna thing, beacon right there. Remember, this side of my deployment zone is completely empty, so being over here might make them sort of safe. Yeah, here is essentially where things end up. There's a Nox, this is the Seed Soldier. There's a Taiga there. A Taiga made it all the way up there. I think Shishkin is right there, that kind of thing. Next up, it's my turn 2. Ignore the smoke. I don't think it's supposed to be here. Over here on the Anomatarkos front, basically all I want to do is I want to get Phoenix into a position where he is healed, and so he can stand up, and I want the Taigas down here in order to get dealt with because some of the Taigas ended up there after Phoenix had to go down, and I don't want them to start their turn next to me and cause problems. This ends up being fairly straightforward. What I basically do is move forward with Machaon, and I throw smoke in both of these two locations. Here I am using the fact that I have a known reroll. Vaulsc gives you one reroll in this particular tournament, and I need to get smoke down here, and I need to get smoke down here, and both of them are likely to succeed. However, if I fail, I'm going to wish that I had put both smoke burst in the same spot. So I'm thinking I'll just use my reroll and whichever one that fails. Of course, they both pass, but that's what happens here. The reason I need to get smoke there, by the way, is so that Machaon can get up the stairs so that he can get to Phoenix. As this is happening, the prone Ajax and the prone Phoenix are basically shuffling around each other so they don't get seen by the Noctifer. After that, I fix Phoenix and get him back up to NWI, and I have a melee fight with the Taiga. That's actually where I do use my reroll. Basically, the Taiga wins the face-to-face roll, and I can't afford to take 2 double action saves on Machaon, so I just say, okay, I'm just going to reroll that, and I do win the face-to-face with the reroll and kill the Taiga. So it could have been really unlucky, especially if I had failed both those saves. Machaon had died. That would have been, really catastrophic, especially considering how good Machaon is in close combat against, Taigas don't even have martial arts, and they can't berserk in ARO. So I did use the reroll. It did help, but who knows what would have happened if I had not used the reroll. Probably things would have been fine. Anyways, that more or less resolves this part of the situation, and it really just did not take that many orders. What I am then going to do is activate Achilles. Achilles is here. What I want to do is take Achilles, and I want him to end up over here so that he can kill Shishkin. Shishkin is basically the only good gun that's left in this list, and if I can kill Shishkin, things are going really, really well for me. I have chosen to use the heavy infantry hoplite armor version of Achilles, which means he does have Frenzy. That's not going to kick in until the end of my turn, but I do like having Achilles being able to be an active ARO piece, and in that context, having the extra armor kind of helps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Achilles, I'm going to have him run down to here, pick up Hector in a fire team duo, that'll keep him from becoming impetuous, and then the two of them are going to run all the way over here, gunfighting stuff along the way. They're going to gunfight this Taiga, they're going to kill Shishkin, they're going to kill a Nox here. There are a couple of moments where they have to bypass this Ardrone. This Ardrone has a Flash Pulse, and if Achilles gets Flash Pulse, that would be really annoying. I think the odds of that are fairly low, but if it happens, it'll be annoying. So what I essentially do is I offer Hector as an arrow first, so you can Flash Pulse Hector. He's not gunfighting this turn, I don't care about him. So he'll get stunned, but Achilles can run past. Turns out that it's not super important, and turns out it is effective. We end up in this position with the duo formed. Achilles is here with a nice arrow position. I've put this Taiga unconscious. I've put this Taiga unconscious. I've wiped out Shishkin, and I've put a Nox, I think, hacker over there. So really good position. I did move Hector back to here. Hector has a tin bot, but I'm a little bit worried that there's a shrouded hacker right there, just because on the other side of the board there was a shrouded hacker, and I don't want Hector to get isolated. That would be really game-endingly bad for me. And actually, yeah, so that wasn't how things ended. I actually did indeed, on a next order, decide to move Hector even further back just to keep him absolutely safe from that hacker. Anyway, that's my turn 2. My position is still incredibly strong. I have Phoenix over here I thought he was in an arrow position. He has a prone marker next to him. Maybe that's an old prone marker. But my opponent basically has no good guns left. He has a Caliban here. I've wiped out a whole bunch of his Taigas, and the remaining ones are mostly locked down. And he does still have this Noctifer who's kind of annoying, but the Noctifer, I mean, he's only burst 1, and I'm going to be burst 2, and a lot of my guys have smoke, so I don't think that Noctifer is highly leveraged in terms of being an attack piece. At this point, I think my opponent is realizing that there's no way he's going to be able to make a play for that console. He just doesn't have the orders in either Group 1 or Group 2. He also doesn't have a piece that can run up and grab it, especially not with Achilles now in a position guarding the approach like that. So he's going to go for the most points that he can get. And he thinks that the way to do that is to take this Caliban chain of command, which is now the lieutenant, and to run all the way over here and kill my designated target. So that's what he does. He really does not want me to doctor the designated target up, given that Machaon is right there. So he just peeks around the corner and surprise shot, SMG, shock ammo into the designated target, all three. Considering the arrow that's looking at him, he dies in the process, but that is a point for him. That really is it, though. I think my opponent might have used the Seed Soldier to put a wound on Achilles or something like that, which is fairly lucky. He might have used this Noctifer to shoot at Ajax, who's back here, but Ajax appears to have dodged backwards to a safe position. So if those things did happen, they don't have a big impact on the state of the game. Oh, there is one other thing that happened. My opponent did try to take his Nox paramedic, who is over here, and try to use the paramedic skill on his Nox hacker, who's unconscious, and he fails the Fizz roll, and then he uses his reroll, and that also fails. So it turns out the reroll isn't actually, the god bullet that will save you from bad dice giving you bad luck. Nox only have Fizz 10, so even on 2 dice, the odds aren't great, but I figured I'd bring it up because this is sort of testing out these new rules. All right, now it's my turn 3. I have my entire order group intact. All I have to do is knock out a stupid Noctifer, grab the beacon, run it back to my deployment zone, and kill his designated target with my data tracker. That may seem like a tall order, but I've got 13 orders to accomplish it because I haven't really suffered any losses so far. Earlier, I think I used a tactical awareness order on Akmon to push this button. I'm noticing now that it's blue. I could also try to spend some orders to go steal the other button from my opponent, but that's only worth 1 point, and it's kind of unreliable, and honestly, I don't need to do that to win. So, what do? I set Phoenix up on ARO right here on the end of last turn, but that does mean that now he's staring at this Noctifer over here. I decide to have the gunfight now. It's basically burst 3 with heavy rocket launcher versus burst 1 with the Noctifer's missile launcher. This could go very badly for me if Phoenix gets blown up, but it also could go very well, and if it does go badly for me, I just have to use Machaon to throw smoke. As it happens, I win the face-to-face, and the Noctifer fails 2 saves against the fire damage and goes straight to dead. So that's a big win for me, because the Noctifer is one of those things that really just have taken 1,000 orders in order to try to get past, especially if I get bad luck on the smoke toss. Next up is this R-drone. What I'm basically going to do is throw smoke right here. That'll allow my Link to mostly get past, and then I'll probably throw Phoenix into the smoke and use his nanopulsar on the R-drone or something like that. So Link goes that way, Phoenix stands right here and nanopulsars the R-drone. Those are all the screenshots I got, but I can tell you basically what happens after that is all the arrow on this console beacon thing is gone, so my Link runs up, grabs it, I run all the way back here. I have Ajax take a gunfight first with this Seed Soldier, then with the dude in the back, the designated target. Remember, Ajax is my data tracker. Kill him, and I think I slingshot Machaon into my own deployment zone here at the end, and that's pretty successful. It's now my opponent's turn. He is in loss of lieutenant. He has lost a huge amount of stuff. His only hope is that he can run this Shrouded Killer Hacker forward and shoot Machaon and somehow get super lucky on the throws and kill Machaon in basically 1 order of shooting. If he can do that, then he gets the points for having me no longer have the beacon at the end of the game. Of course, the odds of this are astronomically low. I'm going to be throwing smoke. He's going to be at -6 for mimetism, -3 for cover. I don't even care about his surprise shot. He's just got a combi rifle. I've got NWI. There is no way that this is going to succeed. And there is a little bit of justice. It does not succeed. I think that the combi rifle shots miss or something like that, and in ARO, this guy gets smoked. Which neatly wraps up the game. It was 9-2 in my favor. The only point that I was missing was this red console that you can see right there. His 2 points were this console and the designated target that he killed. In many ways, I think this matchup was determined by the rock, paper, scissors of Taigas against Steel Phalanx. This particular Steel Phalanx list is very robust against the kind of threat the Taigas can bring. My dudes are really good at dodging, they're really good in melee, and on the off chance that somebody gets wounded, it's very easy for me to go cancel the NWI. I think I canceled Phoenix's NWI 2 or 3 times this game. Meanwhile, my opponent had no smoke, and he also had no MSV2. That basically meant that Phoenix had really free reign to be an absolute terror in ARO against my opponent. And that was rock, paper, scissors. If my opponent had taken a Guaylo, Phoenix would have been eaten alive by that thing's MSV2 and, heavy rocket launcher. That's not to say that all of N4 is rock, paper, scissors. It's just that both me and my opponent were running really skew lists. Me skewing into toughness, him skewing into Taigas, and in that particular matchup, the Taigas are not good against my particular stuff. I do also want to comment a little bit about how the crit rules affected things. Not the criticals. I mean, the criticals mattered a little bit, but the fact that we're using these alternate house rules. Most of these alternate house rules didn't matter all that much. However, the 2 big ones that really did affect things were the limited insertion protection, which I took advantage of, and the 20 model cap, which my opponent took advantage of. Because of this 20 model cap, there were basically a sea of Taigas in my opponent's deployment zone. There was absolutely no way that I was going to be able to cut through these things in a given turn in order to run an alpha strike, and if I didn't get back to a defensive position at the end of that attempt, the Tigers were just going to steamroller over me. I chose a strategy of camping in a building where Phoenix's ARO could be best leveraged, and I think that was a good strategy. But if I hadn't had that on the table, the sheer number of models would have been really tough to deal with. It's also worth noting that taigas are not the most oppressive warband that you can think of because they don't have smoke. If the taigas had instead been Morlocks or Shaolin Monks or Varangian Guards or something else that had smoke, they would have been able to run all over me and the game would have been very, very different. So while running 20 models wasn't super busted in this case, I can imagine other cases where it would be super oppressive. One other change that these crit rules had is that it made the game take longer. Naturally, the largest suspect are the 8 taigas. No knock on my opponent, he played reasonably efficiently. It's just that these 8 taigas are generating 8 impetuous orders and 8 irregular orders, and you've got to spend a lot of time moving those guys up. If you practice and get good, I'm sure you can be just as fast with a 20 model list as most people are with a standard 15 model list, but it is something that slowed the game down in this particular case. Likewise, the modified crit rules slowed the game down. You basically have to roll a separate die for the criticals. That's not a big deal, but Tabletop Simulator makes die rolls take, I don't know, 2 seconds in order to roll. And while I do like that 2 seconds, it adds some suspense and some drama to rolling the dice, the fact that I've got to do it twice, once for the crit and then once for all the other saves, does kind of double the amount of time it takes to resolve the critical. It's not a huge deal, but I mean, it adds seconds to a game that's already a little bit long. Similarly, the reroll added some seconds, especially because my opponent and I were each trying to remind each other when we might want to use it because, it's really easy to forget. That will naturally go away with familiarity, but it is something that added some more time.